Welcome to another edition of Elections Insights. I'm your host, Wendell Jeffrey. And this afternoon, with me in the studio is a very respectable, very dynamic young lady. I think the first female to announce a presidential bid in this 2025 election cycle. We're going to have a nice discussion. Thank you. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining. Let me welcome Ms. Amanza.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing, my dear?
I am very well. I'm very, very well. Thank you. Very well. And the first person would have been Simona. Simona Bruce.
Oh, Simona.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes,
she announced some time ago.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Amanza, you have jumped into the big league with both feet.
With both feet, yeah.
Who is Amanza? Look in the camera and tell us.
Amanza?
Mm-hmm.
I am obviously a woman, a mother, a professional for over 2 decades. Most of my professional life has been in governance, in government, working and consulting with agencies such as CARICOM, the International Civil Aviation Organization. So, all of my professional life has been spent in public service, both at the national as well as the international level.
Okay. Thank you. So let's deal with one of the elephants in the room. I don't know if two elephants can fit in the same room. You said that one of the reasons you resigned and moved on from the PNC was as a result of a meeting that you have had with the leader, opposition leader, Aubrey. And then as soon as you resigned, you announced. How long did it take between your resigning and your announcing of your party?
Well, I will tell you that my announcement was made 2 weeks after he and I met. It was about 2 weeks after our initial meeting and subsequent meetings with other persons on his behalf that announcement was made.
You at your press conference, you seemed very deliberate. You seemed as though you had put a lot of thought and even work into the decision to announce. And then I think I saw a picture with some folks who are on your team.
They were moral support. One of the things that I have been able to be very clear about, and if you've followed me in Parliament for the last 5 years that I've been in Parliament, is that I'm very clear on the fact that we need a compelling, uniting vision to move Guyana forward. And for me, what you saw was me standing to say to the people of Guyana that I had a very difficult decision to make. But I've made that difficult but necessary decision. Some folks criticized the fact that I was emotional. And the flip side of that is if a woman does not appear to be emotional, she's cold. So it's a case of if very often, and particularly for women in politics, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
No,
so
saw.
For me, authenticity and being true to who you are.
Yeah, and that's needed.
Pivotal.
That's needed and relevant. When you speak of the desire for this unifying approach that is needed, if the conversation that you had with Mr. Norton had gone differently or better, would you still have left the party?
Our fundamental disagreement relates to the manner in which the PPPC has to be held to account. And I'll be very clear on that. In my view, we are on the same side of this, as in we have a common opponent that is bent on domination and control. I think one of the things that people have seen for the last 5 years, again, is that I have been exceedingly forthright. You know, I hold this government.
Hold a while. I'm gonna come to that. What I'm asking is, you said the catalyst for you leaving the PNC was as a result of the discussion that you had with Mr. Norton, in which discussion you did not hear from him. You did not hear him articulate your role sufficiently.
No, absolutely. I was very clear, and I even read a part of my resignation letter.
Right. So what I'm asking is, if that conversation, if in the meetings that you had with him, he had told you things that you wanted to hear by way of your role in the upcoming elections and stuff, would you still have left the party?
Listen, it's been very clear for a long time, like I've said, that it was made very apparent that my input, my presence, etc., has been excluded from a lot of things. One of the things that I've been very deliberate about, and perhaps it's my fault, is that I have not been vocal or public about a lot that has gone on.
Okay.
And for me, it is a burden that I'm prepared to carry, because one of the things, no, let me finish. One of the things that I'm not prepared to do is to enter into a back and forth about why this and who said what. The name of the movement is Forward Guyana. I had a difficult decision to make. I made the difficult decision. I am prepared to live with the consequences of that decision, but my energy now is focused on how do we hold a corrupt authoritarian regime that is becoming more and more egregious by the day to account.
Okay.
So I think for all intents and purposes it has to be clear.
Okay.
Mr. Norton and I are on the same side here.
No, I'm with you. I'm just trying, because I listen, so I'm hearing, and I'm honored to talk with you.
Yeah.
But there's a saying that he who forgets the past is destined to repeat it.
Absolutely.
So what I'm trying to find out from you is, you said that your leaving was as a result of that pivotal meeting you had. And I'm asking you, if the meeting had gone differently and you had heard from Mr. Norton what you said you didn't hear, would you still have left the PNC? That's the question I'm asking.
No, absolutely not. You have to understand that I grew up in the PNC. My parents served, my grandparents served. And though efforts will be made to minimize my contribution, my family's contribution, or to cite it when it is important to them, for me and my entry into politics, it has always been about country.
Okay.
It has always been about country.
Do you think Mr. Norton is equipped to be the president of this country?
My view on whether Mr. Norton is equipped or not is irrelevant. That is for the electorate to decide.
But you left the party that he is heading.
And that is fine. People have disagreements all the time, but certainly his
so let me ask,
is for the electorate to decide.
You wouldn't opine on that?
I would not opine on that.
Even though you're opposing him?
Even though I'm what?
You're opposing him because he's running to be the presidential candidate.
And I've been very clear.
He's running to be
PPPC administration.
He's running to be the presidential candidate, and you are running to be the presidential candidate.
We are running, and Forward Guyana is running because change is important in Guyana.
So even if he wins, it's better than the PPP?
We are on the same side of the political divide in terms of our opponent.
Okay.
We are both committed to holding the PPPC accountable.
Okay, so let me ask you then.
We may differ on the methodology, and we may differ on the fact that we have a younger generation that is calling and crying out for change and for different. Like I said, Guyana is 60 years old now, and this is all we have known. You know, I am in my mid to late 40s now, and this is all we have known, this either or. And you have a country that is on the brink and at the crossroads of such major transformation. And you see a political system that does not accommodate everyone having a seat at the table.
Are you ready to be the president of Guyana?
Listen, if Irfan Ali could be the president of Guyana, then I believe that I am fully ready.
So
I have spent 20 years in governance. I understand the way government works. I understand all of the moving parts, because spending 20 years in government in various ministries at various levels is not something that is to be taken lightly. And not only that, it is current experience. And so I understand the way government should work.
How the cabinet or the government is set up in Guyana, you need a team. So it's not just Amanza alone would be there. Do you have a team that can run Guyana on day one? Have you been able to attract people who are sufficiently able to do that?
We are so excited at the response that we've gotten. Young, bright professionals, both at home, those who have been forced to leave because they can no longer work in the current paradigm, are saying we are ready to come back and to put our shoulders to the wheel. Now, one of the things that I was very clear about, and since you listened so intently to my address when I made the public aware of my departure, is that we don't harbor illusions of being able to go immediately to achieve a minority. We run with the winning attitude, we run with winning in mind, but we're also very realistic. We're realistic in that we understand that change is a process. Change has to be gradual, but it has to start somewhere.
So are you saying that you're kind of working towards some kind of a shared governance kind of
What I'm saying is that what we want is a system of governance where every Guyanese feels represented, what we are sure about. And if anybody has doubts about this, they look to see where Guyana is after 60 years almost. Next year is going to be 60 years. The most money that we've ever had, but the poor increasing daily. Point to me one system, whether it's health, education, governance, that is functioning the way it should. You can't. So something is clearly wrong.
Are you saying that under Amanza presidency, that would not obtain? That you would be able to sufficiently make sure that health and education and governance and all those things work?
What we are going to be espousing is a vision that sees every Guyanese feeling a part of this progress. Is it going to be a very deliberate and sometimes a slow movement? Absolutely. And we're not going to sit here and sell dreams. We're going to be realistic in our approach to this. But what we are sure about is that we have got to start someplace.
You were part of the last...
No, let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
We've got to start someplace, and we are saying that we're willing to start, because we're not going to look at our grandchildren and say, we didn't do anything.
Right. I understand. I understand. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what you're saying. You were part of the last administration, the Granger administration.
I was a public servant under the Granger administration. So I was not a cabinet member or a minister in such thing. I was a public servant.
Did you have the ear of the president? Did you talk?
No.
You didn't talk.
No.
Because
I spent a lot of my, from 2013 to 2020 when I was removed, I was General Counsel for the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority.
Okay. All right. Would you be willing to partner with any of the parties who are vying for
Well, you know,
the upcoming elections?
interestingly, there are a number of smaller parties who have indicated an interest in us collaborating, because we realize that the Guyanese, the average Guyanese on the ground is crying out for something different. And so in the coming week, we are going to have some exciting collaborations to announce in terms of us moving forward and contesting these elections.
There is the civic side to the PPP. Has the president or Mr. Jack Dio or any significant person from the current administration reached out to you for any collaborative involvement?
People have reached out, but I believe that the PPPC, as it is not the PPPC of Cheddi Jagan. It is a completely different animal, and like I've said, we are diametrically opposed in our beliefs as to what is best for this country.
So in a discussion, if they were to reach out to you to say, Amanza, what do you think the PPP can do to win your vote of confidence? Would that be a discussion you're prepared to have?
It's not a discussion that I'm prepared to have, because I've lived through 23 years, and I've lived through, and I continue to live through the last 5. And so the best indicator of future conduct is past behavior.
Okay.
So, you know, it's not a discussion that I'd be willing to entertain. I believe that the membership of the PPP, they're good people, they're Guyanese people, but I believe at the leadership level, there's a degree of lack of care and for the Guyanese, and it's a question of domination and control and subjugation. And for me, I could never be a part of something like that.
Okay. What do you think of the APNU by way of considering a partnership with them? Are you open to that?
Listen, absolutely. Like I've made it very clear, my political career is going to be one that will see me resisting any party that intends to subjugate, to dominate, and to control the people of Guyana. That is not why we fought for independence. So, and I've made this very clear to the leader of the opposition that we have that common cause, holding the PPP to account. There is no doubt, Wendell, that they're a formidable machinery. They've spent decades amassing wealth and of course controlling government, etc. So you'd be naive to underestimate them. And so I think combined efforts are important.
The funding a political movement,
yes,
is normally a challenging.
Absolutely.
Do you have the support of funders who can take you over?
Listen, we are delighted. In the first 2 days that this was announced, we had over 200 young people sign up to volunteer. MP, we are ready. Do we need to hand out flyers? Do we need to canvass? And that is the degree of hunger that exists, particularly in the population under age 30. They are a generation that have access to information that we never had at their age. For me, research was going to the library and opening the Encyclopedia Britannica and having to do your projects from that. They have a wealth of information at their fingertips. With that information comes exposure. Exposure to different schools of thought, to different ways of thinking, to seeing that a different and better life is possible.
Okay, but in addition to the leg support, the boots on the ground, you would need funding.
Absolutely.
Have you been able to track?
People have been donating. They've been donating their time, their talent, and of course their treasure. People are calling up. Is there an account that we can make a donation to? Is there a meeting that we can sponsor? Because again, this is a people-driven movement. And of course, we are not one of the giants like the PPP or the PNC, but change begins. You know, I'm always very encouraged by what I see, for example, in the New York mayoral primaries, and the kind of disruption that we see happening when people decide that we want a difference.
Correct.
And I think that is what we're seeing here, and so we are encouraged
by that,
by the response.
There's a talk now that Azzuddin Mohammed has also announced that you would make him a workable prime ministerial candidate.
I've seen those
have
photographs.
you guys discussed that?
No.
You've never discussed that?
No.
Have you ever spoken to Azzuddin about your political aspirations?
No. In fact, the first time I met Mohammed was at Tushen when Doubleday was on fire, and we had about a 1-minute exchange on just how, you know, sad and tragic the entire situation was, and that was that. So there've been no
discussions with the two of you.
No, absolutely not.
Azzuddin seems to see the PPP through a similar lens through which you see the PPP as needing to be removed, as uncaring, unethical, corrupt. Would you be willing to, you spoke of your desire or your intention to partner, your willingness to partner with APNU. Would you also be willing to partner with Azzuddin should he ask you about that?
That is not something that we have considered, no. No.
In as much as he has the same desires, why are you reluctant to partner with him?
Because there is, of course, a long history of association.
What
that
association?
has to be with the current administration.
His association with the current.
And so for us, our focus is on something new. Like I said a few weeks ago, I'm not sure what the policies are. I'm not sure what the ethos or the raison d'etre is. So for you to say, well, yes, you know, this is a possibility is certainly not the wise thing to do. So no, we have not. What I could tell you is that there have been other smaller parties that we've talked with, and we realized that our vision and our mission, they intertwine, and so we believe that combining our voices, our resources, could make an impact on our political landscape, because that is what we want to do. I said, and I continue to say, that the either or either nature of our politics, look, borne out by the fact that earlier in the morning, GCOM announced that only the PPP and the PNC will be able to get hard copies of the voters list. And so that is what we're talking about, a system that continues to facilitate
the
either approach. You either in the red camp or you in the green camp.
Is your reluctance to say affirmatively that you would partner with Azzuddin, is it tangential on his being sanctioned?
Not necessarily, but to ignore the fact that there are Magnitsky sanctions there would be very irresponsible, would it not?
So it is a part of your consideration?
No, absolutely. I'm a lawyer by profession, so I understand the implications. But of course, I think Azzuddin Mohammed is very capable of fighting his battles. And so my energy certainly is going to be dedicated towards what it is that is our driving ethos, moving Guyana forward.
Your announcement was recent, and when you announced there was already an announced date for the election,
right.
September 1.
Right.
When Mr. Norton was here, and a few weeks ago, I asked about some of the plans that he has should he become the president. Do you have a portfolio? a manifesto? Have you begun to put together a manifesto?
We have begun to put together a manifesto.
You care to talk of some of the leading things in the manifesto?
What you will see is a plan or an agenda to move Guyana forward. What characterizes our current political climate? There seems to be an outbidding. Or if you promise this, I will promise that. And that is what has kept us in a build and break cycle every 5 years, unless of course, like the PPP was in power for 23 years, and we saw where that took Guyana. There has to be an interruption of that type of thing. And so there has to be a holistic common agenda to developing this country. Now, let me share a practical experience with you. I have served in Parliament for the last 5 years, made, I believe, and based on feedback, very sound contributions that at the end of the day were completely ignored. Why? Because you have a government that has a one-seat majority. Now, I could say, yes, well, we will strive to get into government, etc. But you run the risk of having the same thing happen in the inverse. And so when one group is in government, half of the population feels left out or underrepresented, and vice versa. And for a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multiracial society, that is dangerous. And I'm saying that, okay, we have got to decide that we want to pause and we want to interrupt and disrupt that hamster wheel that we've been on. For me, it would be very easy to say, yes, I go back to Parliament, I am an MP, I stand and I speak in the National Assembly. But that obviously has never been able to drive meaningful change. It has always been contingent on that majority. And of course, we've never had a situation where our lines have always been close. And it has always been close because from our assessment, the either or and the disengaged.
Right, but that's the nature of the politics or the political structure in Guyana. I was asking.
Let me take you up on that.
No. And the reason why I'm listening to you and I'm smiling because you said that the PP was in power for 23 years. The PNC was in power for 28.
For 28 before.
But you didn't refer to that.
No, because
and you spoke of your roots in the PNC and the historical roots. And you spoke about it with pride.
I refer to it because those 23 years...
No, what I'm saying is that when you speak of your PNC roots, you speak of it with pride. But the PNC was in power, much to the chagrin of another group of people who... You understand what I'm saying?
No, you're making the same point that I am making.
But I'm saying that as I listen to you, I'm listening to you speak as a person who is beginning a small party. But Amanza,
beginning a movement.
A movement that begins with a small party. But I'm saying to you, as I listen, that peradventure you amass from some deflection of both the PPP and the APNU, sufficient persons to make you the government. Are you going to come one day and say, I think we should lose after 5 years or after 10 years? I think I don't want to be president, or I don't want my party to be president anymore, the governing party anymore. I'm thinking that sometimes we speak only from the position that we find ourselves in, without realizing that when you are in, it's a different kettle of fish. But this discussion, this pivot that we had here was my asking you, what would you do vis-a-vis what is being done now? What would you do similarly or differently? I was asking about your manifesto.
No,
what are some of the things
but you
that...
You digressed
No,
on a very...
I was asking you, you digressed, because my question to you was, I told you that Mr. Norton was here and he spoke of some of the manifesto things.
Right.
And I asked you, and you haven't told me anything about what your manifesto,
No,
what are some of the high points of your manifesto?
Absolutely, and we will be willing to do that. But let me, before I answer that, you make a very important point about the PNC being in power for 28 years prior. I came of age as a professional in public service under a particular government.
Correct.
And so what I refer to is my lived experience.
Fair enough.
Right? Is my lived experience. So it is not intended in any way to pretend like that didn't happen. But my existence at that time was as a little child, so I can only speak from my lived experience. Now, as it relates to how we see Guyana moving forward, like I started saying, we have to have a national agenda that is bipartisan and that is developed across party lines. One of the things that we are not willing to tolerate any longer is the cyclical build and break that we go through every 5 years, or that we are vulnerable to be going through every 5 years. We have to have a compact with the people of Guyana that says, these are our developmental priorities. Right. The things that are working can be improved upon. So we're not interested in outbidding, and if you do this, there's things that are working, you improve on that. Mm-hmm. And there are things that are not working that you have to be able to say this must change. Mm-hmm. Constitutional reform is a typical example.
Okay.
When every government goes in,
they promise it.
Oh, we're going to do constitutional reform. And when you taste the sweet of that,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
So
that's the point I'm making. No, so when Amanza gets in there,
well, you know, for me, I will say this. The fact that I am not content just to return to Parliament as a member of Parliament, enjoy what people perceive as some kind of status, to stand up and to say, hey, this has to end, mm-hmm. I think is an indication to the people of Guyana. This is not about power or position or status. This is responding to a cry from Guyanese that we are tired of this, and we have to have a group of people who are willing to sit down and to put self aside and say, this has to change. Running, going back to Parliament as an APNU MP, etc., is quite... Hold on, let me finish. Okay. It's quite easy to do. Coming out, getting out of the game and say, you know what, I am no longer willing to be a part of the game, but I am willing to be a part of the solution to changing the game.
No, and I understand you, and I'm saying that as I'm listening to you, I'm listening to you based on the fact that you have been in Parliament now for 4 years, going on.
It's 5.
5 years. And you are a part of how many other 30-something other persons. And you're saying that there is something different about you, that the rest who are there, who are comfortable with going back on the status or the perceived status quo that obtains, that Amanza is different. So Amanza has decided, you guys can keep doing that, but I have a different calling, I have a different perspective, I have a different view of Guyana. And my view of Guyana, not in any negative way, but it trumps your view, because if you had the same desire for Guyana as Amanza has, you would do what I'm doing too. In essence, that's what you're saying.
No.
You've left the party with other people.
No, what I am saying is that I have the courage of the conviction that I have.
Correct.
And that is shared by a number of people.
But not the parliamentarians.
No, but what I will not do is to pronounce on another man's courage of conviction.
Correct.
That is for that person to do.
Correct.
Whenever change is wrought in a society, it has to be birthed from a particular place. And it does not mean that this is less or that is more. It means standing in the moment, understanding what the moment requires, and having the courage of your conviction to step out on it. And I hope that that is what is translated, because one of the things that as a young woman, and I've always been blessed to be the youngest person in the room, in many, many rooms throughout my professional life. As somebody in aviation, there are many times that I was always the woman in the room, the only woman in the room. In many rooms, sometimes the only person of African descent in a room. And one of the things that you have to be very clear about is the courage of your convictions.
Correct.
Movement, and this is why this is a movement. This is why it is a movement. Movements have to be birthed out of a deep sense of conviction. When Chedi, Jagan, and Forbes Burnham founded the PPP, it was birthed out of a very deep sense that we are not going to be bound by the shackles of colonialism.
Correct.
Forward Guyana is birthed out of that cry and that desire that says, you know what, we have encompassed around this bush for the last 60 years, and obviously it is not working.
Right. So what I'm saying is that I'm hearing you, and I'm just, as I listen to you, because I've been around, and I've watched politicians across the Caribbean, across North America, who begin with very idealistic and novel and passionate positions, only to then, like you say, taste it, and then to become, and so it is. I listen to you. However, I am wondering if it can be maintained, and that is why I'm trying to juxtapose it, so that there can be some analyzing of what you're saying. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because you would have to know that there are other small parties with other people who have left, Nagamutu and Ranjatan and all of those. And if you had spoken to them, they would have said the same thing, that they're, with the term, with the legal term, the reason, residenta, is akin to what you're exposing now. But what happened when once they tasted that? I remember when some of those guys talked about political reform, constitutional reform, only to get into office and shelve the whole concept. You see what I'm saying?
No, and listen to me, that cynicism is absolutely understandable.
I don't know if it's cynicism, it's reality.
No, there is cynicism, the caution, etc.
Caution, yeah.
But what it also does is it keeps us in a prison of the very thing that we say we want to change. And it is understandable. Yes, we've heard this, we've heard that. And I say to us, we cannot be trapped in the prison of the past.
Of sameness.
This is why. You don't just vote one time for your life and that is over and done with.
Correct.
This is why you vote in some countries every 4 years and every 5 years, because it is vital for national renewal. One of the dangers of that cynicism is that you're trapped in that jail of, oh, it will all end the same. But what if it doesn't?
No,
not you.
I'm not. No, but what I'm doing, what I'm saying here is, because this is live, this is being streamed, and people are listening to you. And so, my role as a journalist is to get you to address those. And I'm comparing and I'm contrasting, and I'm saying other people have come out with the same modus operandi, with the same desires and blood in their eyes and freshness and desire for newness. You it is who now has the responsibility to alleviate that cynicism that is up. It is you who has to reduce the caution. You understand what I'm saying?
No, and you're absolutely
right. So
right.
it is not. It's not me. I'm too old aboard to be caught by feathers, right?
But you, and this is why these types of conversations are important, because you could dismiss this as being okay, just another one of it. But like I pointed out to somebody, these small parties and small movements impacted the political landscape of this country. When in 1964, it was coalescing with a small party. that the PNC was able to come to power.
Correct.
When in 2015 it was with coalescing with one of these very small parties that they were able to come to power. So to dismiss small parties is to dismiss the evolution of the people of Guyana, the evolution of their needs.
No, let me say this. We had small parties that competed in the last elections. At least a couple of the leaders of those small parties have now aligned themselves. You see what I mean? So it is not unreasonable for somebody listening to you to initially, until you provide clarification, put you in a box. You see what I mean? It is you who have now the task of making sure you present yourself and your concepts so that you work your way out of the perceived box. You notice, though, that you have not told me anything about
I was just coming back to say
manifesto,
that we're having
right?
all of these discussions. We have a few planks that will underpin what we do. That overall integrated national development plan, one that can be bought into even at the level of the National Assembly, so that Guyanese are not subject to that 5-year cycle of build and break. But we agree that these are our developmental priorities. The competition will be on how efficiently a particular party or government may be able to get us there. So that underpinning overarching vision. One of the things that we are going to be focusing on very heavily is local governance and local democracy. Guyana is 83,000 square miles. Centralization continues to be the bugbear in development. And so another plank that you will see is us decentralizing and returning more power to the regions so that they can govern within the regions for the specific needs of that region, catered to the uniqueness of that region. So are you going to interrupt me because you've been asking me about a manifesto?
But you're not giving me specifics. Those are general. I could tell you that. I could tell you that what is needed is the decentralization of government. But I need specifics. I need because my folks are listening to me. It's a conversation we're having, but it's a conversation that is.
So I've started by saying to you
that is relative to time. Okay.
I've said to you what the general planks are.
Yeah, those are the general planks.
Okay.
What the folks need to hear from
so now
you
we're
is
going
specificity.
To go, no, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. But you have to allow me to be able to espouse
within
time.
So
we've done the general planks.
Okay, good.
One of our major concerns is the cost and quality of life for Guyanese. And so we will be unrolling in the next few days a very robust program for a social safety net for Guyanese. Mothers must be able to feed their children 3 square meals a day. And we are going to be showing how that is possible with the resources that we have. With $8 million per day coming, one of the things that people who have listened to me speak know that I'm passionate about is that we must have safe public transportation for our children, to school, for our elderly, and it could be free. Barbados has a system where pensioners have public transportation free. So these are some tangible deliverables. One of the things that we're going to have to focus on is how do we help a family to afford basic food items. So there has to be an approach to stabilizing the price of basic food commodities. We're going to start with the basics. We are going to focus when it comes to healthcare on promoting preventative health care and primary care so that we don't allow our people to get sick, but we monitor and manage at a village level. One of the things that this government is failing to do is to look at primary health care. When I grew up as a little girl in the quarantine, we had a clinic in the village. We need to not only build hospitals, which is sick care, but we need to empower and strengthen the capacity of those clinics to help in preventive care at the village level. So you're talking about building a healthy population. When it comes to issues of the management of the, for example, Natural Resources Fund, one of the things that we're going to be talking about and championing very heavily is the establishment of a national oil company for the myriad of benefits it could bring to Guyana. It is one thing to talk about renegotiating the contract. It is another thing for us to maximize what we are getting now and keeping that more in the pockets of the Guyanese people. When it comes to our youth, we hear a lot about youth empowerment, and to us, it suggests this, they have to be handed as benevolence, you know, this power. We want our young people to understand that they are co-owners of their future, that you have a stake at the table. And so our youth programs are going to be geared towards not only empowering, but encouraging young people to be co-owners of their future. So regionally, you're going to see the setting up of youth assemblies where young people get together and they decide what are some of the policy issues that they want governed in their respective regions. And that feeds in to the collective policy.
Beautiful.
So there are a number of things that we're working on. Stay tuned and we'll roll them out.
Good. Now, if you were to, and this might help you in your visioning too, if you were to make some suggestions based on what you think the current administration should be doing but they're not doing, what are some of the things that you think they could do now that they're not doing?
Police reform. The reform of the criminal justice system.
Meaning what?
Meaning that the ethos of the Guyana police force is completely contrary to what it should be.
Meaning
their
what?
Approach to corruption and rooting out corruption.
How do you do that without bringing in international?
Well, this is the point. You asked me what they should do. We have, for example, in the Adriana Young's case, we've called for an impartial international investigation into this. Nothing has happened. There are in excess of 35 studies on police reform in Guyana, done by the Americans, the British, the Canadians. What is lacking is the political will to implement these recommendations. And I often say that a broken police force and a substandard police force cannot be a point of pride of any government that means well for its population.
And you think that that's what obtains right now?
Absolutely. You ask the average Guyanese, they will tell you. They will tell you that it's sometimes very difficult to draw the distinguishing line between the police and the criminal. You have a police command structure that actively misleads a family on the whereabouts of their child. You have a police infrastructure that issues erroneous statements to false statements. Are
you saying that that's pervasive? That's pervasive, or that's a one-off?
No, of course that is pervasive. You live in Guyana, Wendell, and to pretend like these.
No, I'm asking the questions.
No, absolutely. I understand.
Don't personalize it. I'm asking. You know.
I understand. So you
we're not at the fireside discussion. We live. So I'm asking you if the thing with Adriana does it speak to a pervasive default behavior of the police, or is it
the thing of Adriana? It can't be a thing.
No. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying
it is
you highlighted that.
It is a demonstration of the decay that has been allowed to infest the Guyana police force.
Okay.
It is a question of the lack of political will to fix it. When you have a president that will call the head of the Police Service Commission to say, my boys, why aren't you promoting my boys? That is direct interference in a body that should be independent, and that should not be condoned. When you have a situation that because of the state of the police, you have people who express fear to come back home. You have migrants who want to come back to build, but they don't feel safe in the streets. And let's not talk about the water and the health situation. You have people who want to come back home, but you have to be faced with blackouts, you have to be faced with a lack of potable water, if any water at all. You have to be faced with a failing healthcare system. These are clear and present concerns. And the current government is either unwilling or unable to fix this. And I'm saying to the people of Guyana that it is we who have to stand up and demand that it be fixed, because they are our servants. So,
all right.
So there are a number of other areas, like for example, I pointed out earlier, the management of the oil and gas industry is abysmal, is absolutely abysmal. The treatment of our public servants, absolutely abysmal and disrespectful.
I want to ask a question that might not be fair. It might not be a fair question, but I'm listening to you. Have you ever had a discussion with former President Granger? And the reason I'm asking, yeah, good. The reason I'm asking that is because he was the president of this country and went an election and lost. And lost because the electorate were not convinced that he can, his government could manage the country. He won because they thought that they could have managed, and then he lost because the majority persons thought he couldn't manage. And the reason I'm asking that is because when you're on the outside, you know, some of these things look as though, if Amanza were the president, Amanza would bring about police reform, and Amanza would deal with the oil and gas, and Amanza would deal with transportation, and she would set up health things, and you know what I mean? To me, when you're on the outside, you can look at those things, and while the need might be there, actualizing the needs. I asked Mr. Jordan, the former finance minister, a few weeks ago. He sat in that chair that you sit in. You know what he said to me? One of the things he said? He said that the different departments of government, the different cabinet ministers, had to return billions or millions of dollars back to the consolidated fund every year for the 5 years that they have been in because of failure to execute programs. He told me that live on television. I have the recording. So he said that they did not have the manpower, they did not have the technical skills to execute on some of the things that the last government wanted to do. And I think that the electorate saw that and then voted against that. So Amanza, I'm saying, as you're promising and as you are envisioning and as you cast in your vision, I would hope that you understand that what is happening in Guyana now, I liken it to drinking water from a fire hose. Okay?
Absolutely.
You understand?
Yeah.
So as you cast your vision, right? So I'm going to let you address that, and then I have just a couple more questions, and I thank you for your time.
One of the advantages that I've had is that I've worked in the Ministry of Public Works for over a decade. I've been legal advisor to the Work Services Group. I have been involved in the negotiation of power purchase agreements, the whole gamut. And you've heard me say from time to time, and I like the analogy that you used, drinking water from a fire hose. It's coming at us fast.
Correct.
And this is precisely why we need all hands on deck. This is precisely why.
Like
one of the things that I've pointed out continuously is that the size of the public sector investment program is not sustainable. And resources from the public sector and the private sector combined will not afford us the capacity to execute projects in the manner that we want to execute them. You have, Wendell, an efficiency gap of 41%, which means that for every dollar you spend, 41 cents is wasted. That is as a result of a lack of manpower, it is as a result of lack of equipment and machinery, and it is a direct result of brain drain. It is a direct result of the fact that now we have an oil economy that is competing for skills.
Correct.
So when you have a government that will say to, and I'll use practical examples, to an experienced engineer that headed up, for example, the work services group, that we no longer have need of you. That person is currently serving as the head of the same program in another Caribbean country. But you have a government that comes in with quote unquote blood in their eyes, and they disregard, they release, and they send home competent people purely because they are obsessed with domination and control, and as long as they believe that you are not quote unquote for them, you are discarded. They are the cause of the issues that we continue to face. And Minister Jordan is absolutely right. What has to happen is that you have to create a public service where anybody, irrespective of their political persuasion, is welcome and valued, not because of their political loyalties, but because of the tremendous skills that they bring. Do you know how many Guyanese in the diaspora are willing to come home and to put their shoulders to the wheel here?
Amanza, you know, I like you.
Well, thank you.
No, I like you. I like your objectivity. And as I'm listening to you with objectivity too. And I remember that when the last administration, when the Granger administration was campaigning, one of the things they campaigned on is to bring back the diaspora folks. And they even campaigned on starting a diaspora out of the president's office. So a group or a
there was
department.
a diaspora unit and a department.
But what happened to that? I'm saying that to say
it exists.
To what I'm not gonna nickel and dime over this, but I'm telling you that you had people complaining even under the last administration, as they're doing now, that the diaspora people are not respected, they're not encouraged, they're not sufficiently incentivized to return home. You didn't have a massive exodus of people from the diaspora coming back under the last administration.
And in the spirit of objectivity, we have to agree that the last AP and UFC administration did not have access to the oil wealth. So the issue now of whether we are able to afford.
No, I'm not talking about affordability. I told you just now.
I'm talking about the context of remuneration.
Right, but I'm telling you I told you just now that Mr. Jordan said to me that the problem under the last administration was not money. He said that they had to return millions of dollars to the consolidated funds for failure to execute work. So it wasn't a financial problem, like you were saying. It's a capacity issue. It's a political will. It is the political will for the government to understand that when people come back from the diaspora, they're coming back having been exposed to ethics and to the lack of corruption.
Now you and I agree there.
Right. And so when you bring all these people back who want checks and balances and so on, and you have an environment where people are not willing to make that, it could hamper. But
what you're talking about there is the need for a cultural change.
Correct.
And a cultural shift.
Correct.
Now, you do not effect cultural change by saying that this is how we've always been, this is what we've always done. No, and I'm not saying that you're saying
so
that.
I'm saying you. So I'm cautioning you, and I'm saying to you, Amanza, that you have that responsibility to make sure that when you cast a vision, you cast a vision with an ethos and with an you emote and you provide enough facts to cause people to see you in a light that they haven't seen many others who have come and said what you were saying. You understand?
And that begins.
That's your responsibility.
And you're correct. And that that begins with the first step that we've taken, stepping out so that we could step up. Because you will not be able to do that casting unless you're able to step aside.
Right. So you've made the first step.
And I've made the first step.
So
we're going to be having a lot more discussions.
Yes.
Because I'm very, very interested in, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon.
You don't have time for a marathon.
You see, we're talking about the future of this nation. You're talking about an upcoming election.
Correct.
I am talking about the future of this nation.
I'm with you.
And so
I'm saying to you,
the cultural change, it is going to be a long-term process. But by God, it has to start.
It has to start somewhere. 2 questions to end. Any regrets? Breathe. Don't answer right away. Take 2 seconds. Any regrets?
No. Doubts? Many. But no regrets. No regrets. Because for me, it is important that when I come to the end of my life, that I am able to say, I gave it my best. Doubts? Oh my goodness, a myriad. Will people understand? Will they see this as selfish? Would they see me as not acting pursuant to my conscience?
You sing karaoke?
I do.
Frank says regrets.
I've had a few.
No regrets?
Not at this point. About other things, but not politically. Because for me, giving of myself to the people of Guyana is what I am here to do. It comes with sacrifice. It comes with scrutiny. It comes with having your life turned upside down by people who would try to attribute ulterior motives to you. But at the end of the day, I can look at myself. I can look at my grandchildren. I can look at my children and say, you know what, mommy tried her best. The best way she knew how.
Final question. Who is or was your political role model? Lee Kuan Yew. Tell me about him.
Of Singapore. He, I think, was a man that had a vision for his country. And whilst there was a disagreement with his methodology, I love the fact that he placed emphasis on meritocracy. I love the fact that he placed emphasis on transparency. And I love the fact, Wendell, that one of the things that he understood is that you cannot inhabit first world, and he said this, you can't inhabit first world infrastructure with a third world mentality. And by that he meant, if I build the most beautiful structures, but I am unable to bring my people into the mindset of inhabiting that, then it will all be for naught.
Exercise in futility.
So a Sisyphean pursuit, actually. So, I take a lot of what he has said and how he moved Singapore from, as they say, third world to first, by not only bringing along the infrastructure, but he brought along his people. We have to do that.
Thank you. You began this interview by saying who you are. Take a minute and look in the camera and tell the folks why they should vote for you. Finally.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Guyana is at a crossroads, and we've done the same thing for the last 60 years. We've been told all of the reasons why it must stay this way and why it must be the same and why it will never work to be otherwise. But there is a cry in our nation for more. There's a cry in our nation for different. There's a cry in our nation that says, we want change. And so we are going to be speaking to the nation in the coming days, and we're going to be rolling out a vision and an agenda to transform this country, an agenda that cuts across party lines and politics, but a vision that could galvanize all Guyanese, irrespective of your race, your creed, your ethnicity, or your religion, because we are at a point in our history. If we do not work together, if we do not reach across the aisle in good faith and say, let us together build Guyana, we are going to be left behind. And as the African proverb says, a stranger will inherit our inheritance. And so we are here to say to you with Forward Guyana and the Forward Guyana movement, we are here to say to you that the change that you've been waiting for is you. You are the change that you've been waiting for. And we are here as leaders saying, walk with us as we navigate these very critical years in the life of our nation. Let us together interrupt this cycle, this going around on this hamster wheel that we've done for the last 60 years, because we have the opportunity to transform this nation into something great, into a place that my children, your children, our grandchildren can live out their days in peace. But it requires us to have courage, it requires us to step forward, and it requires us to move Guyana forward. So let's move forward, Guyana.
Thank you so much, Amanza.
This was so good.
Thank you.
This was so good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the hard questions.
Thank you.
We want to answer the hard questions.
Right. And thank you for joining us in Elections Insights. I'm Wendell Jeffrey. Please join us again. Blessings. Bye-bye.